then you can go and call the next neighbor, call the next neighbor. And basically what you're doing is you're just using this guy to say, you can go back to him and say, hey, just so you know, I called 400 people today looking for a home for you, right? So not only are you impressing him, but you're really prospecting for sellers, right? And then you ask that question, so, thanks for taking my call, but by the way, who's the real estate agent that you use when you are, when you have a real estate question? Not who's your agent, not do you have an agent? Because then they'll just say yes and the conversation will be over, whether they have one or not. But you would say, who is your agent? Who is the agent that you approach when you have a real estate question? 9 times out of 10, they're not going to have one, or they can't even remember the person's name. Say, awesome. Well, we have this really cool new technology, this really cool app, and I'm sharing it with a couple of clients right now just to kind of see what their initial feedback is on it. And I was hoping I could share it with you. It's completely free, and you just have to download this app. Like I said, completely free. And if you have any questions about anything you see, just call me right away. And maybe I'll call you in a week and see what you think, answer any questions that you may have about the app. So now they've got your app. So they're in your interweb, if you will. You got a reason to call them back, right? And they told you they don't have a relationship with anyone, right? Or it's not close enough. So, oh, I might call that woman. I forget what her name is. I think she was it Century 21? I can't remember. Basically, that means they don't have a relationship. So yeah, so I assume you'll be interviewing agents again next time you have a question. I'd like to go ahead and start that process with you now, right? So I have something I'd like to offer you. It's no charge. It's a piece of value. And then now you have another person in your database that would recognize your name when you call, and you can start to love on. And you get off the phone with that person and you do it over and over and over and over and over again, right? That's how you build a database of people that have a price range that's more in line with what you want.
Okay.
Because if you're hanging out with $80,000 buyers, you could do the same thing for $80,000 sellers, but you don't want that. So the more you stay in that world, the more listings you're going to take in that world, the more lots you're going to take in that world, the more, investors you're going to get, give me a deal, give me a deal, give me a deal. I flat out said to somebody one time, he's like, I want to deal with $50,000 worth of equity. I said, I just got to ask you a question. So I'm going to find a deal for 50, and I never liked working with investors personally, but said, so I'm going to go and use all of my time and energy to find you a deal that's got $50,000 worth of equity, and I'm going to trade that for 3%. Is that correct? Am I missing something? So why wouldn't I just call my dad and say, hey, Dad, why don't you buy this thing, 50 grand in equity? Why would I give it to you in exchange for 6 grand? Am I missing something here? Right? I don't know. Maybe it's a limiting belief. I didn't want to talk to people about, every little nickel. I wanted to talk to people about where their family was going to have dinner, right? And where their kids were going to play and what school districts they were going to be in. I wanted a little emotion in the process. I felt like dealing with investors was too much about the money, right?
It is.
And before I got real smart, I brought some guy wanted $80,000 worth of equity, and I found him something that had about 50, and he just about cussed me out because the thing didn't have 80. And at that moment, I'm like, there's just something wrong here. I'm busting my ass. I'm going to make 5. I just shared an opportunity with somebody where he could make 50, and I got yelled at. What's going on here? I just don't want to deal with these kind of people all day long, right? So I'm not telling you how to run your business. I'm not telling you how to pick your client.
Well, this is what we've been talking about, and I just can't seem to get out of. I mean, even I'm spending money in those areas. $600,000 house in Sandy Springs. I mean, everybody knows you can't find a $100,000 house in Sandy Springs. I mean,
yeah, you can't even find a $100,000 1-bedroom condo in Sandy Springs.
Yeah. So, but that's the leads that I'm getting generated from this.
So you, if I can be candid with you, It's a relatively passive approach though,
Where are
right?
you coming from?
What?
Where are they coming from?
A Facebook ad. So basically, you market a $600,000 Facebook home in Sandy Springs via a Facebook ad, and Jan's getting a bunch of lower end buyer leads. So my recommendation was let's tweak the ad or tweak the verbiage or call Sam and say, hey, this is what I did, this is what I got. Do you have any advice for me? Or do the same thing on a Facebook page, command Facebook page, and see if anyone can give you any advice, right? But more importantly, that's a passive plan, right? You're basically spending the time creating the ad, then you're putting it out into space and hoping the right people respond at the right frequency and the right intensity. You virtually have no control over it beyond how pretty the ad looks. The opposite approach is a very active approach, which is simply calling all these people. And yes, it is cold calling, and yes, you may not love doing it, but it is a way for you to tackle a lot of conversations all at once and build the database full of people that you're going to enjoy working with more, right? And you're doing double duty because you truly have a buyer that wants this, right? So the more time you spend in a sphere that you want to be a part of, the more activity the more results you're going to get. But if you spend a lot of time working with these types of buyers and sellers and driving all over town to work these opportunities, and then you end up with $600 check here and $1,100 check here and a $400 check here, it's like, man, I would be pissed also, right? So at some point, it's like I'd almost rather not do it, right? Like literally, when I walked into Denise's office, what would that have been, like eight or 9 years ago? No, 8 years ago. Well, no, probably 9 years ago when Rachel and I were about to have Miriam. And at the time I showed her, I said, look, I got about $250,000 in potential clients right here. Okay. Said, I'm thinking about doing something crazy and I want you to talk me out of it. Okay. I'm thinking about taking the whole year off, referring all of the business away, making 50 or making really what probably would have been more like 60, 65, not work at all. Let somebody else handle all of this. And I hang out with the baby for the first year of her life. Am I crazy? Right? It's quality of life, right? So are you trading your time in the right way, in a way that makes financial sense to you, a way that makes emotional sense to you, right? When you get done servicing these people, do you feel fulfilled, or are you like, damn, I can't wait to get out of this, right?
Right.
And if you're not happy, quit freaking doing it, right? Give those leads to somebody else or refer them to somebody else. Say, hey, I don't work Snellville anymore. Done with that shit. And you call up, excuse me, I'm on YouTube. You call up Dina or something. Dina's always been my Snellville person. You know Dina, right? Say, I don't work any of these anymore. Do you want them? I'm probably going to send you about 10 of them a year. I'll take 30% since I'm going to send you so many of them. Right? You interested? Yes or no? There'll be people that are interested, believe me. Right? So if it's not Dina, it's somebody else. Say, whenever I get the request, I'm just going to forward them to you. I'm not even going to call them. I'm just going to forward them to you. We're on the honor system. I want 30% every time one of these deals closes. So instead of making, let's say, $30,000 a year from working your tail off, you make 9 or 10 by doing nothing other than forwarding some emails, and then you reclaim all of that time, and then you go pound the phones searching for people that you actually want to work with. So it's trading time for money until you earn your way out of that by earning enough money to pay somebody to do the stuff you don't want to do anymore. So you're moving from self-employed, solo artist to it's kind of like this idea, like down here. Well, let me draw it for you. This will be relevant for you, Jimmy, too. Okay. This is a bell curve. You can't see it too well. I drew it in black. I'll draw it in black. Hang on. Okay. When you first get started in real estate, you don't have a whole lot of money, but you got a lot of time, generally. Okay. And as you have more and more sales, you get more and more money and less time. You guys are probably both like right around here right now, right? You're starting to make a little bit more money. You're starting to be a bit more protective about your time, but you're not ready to start writing a check to somebody to do a lot of the work yet, right? It's because you don't have quite enough money to do so, and you still have a little time, right? But I throw 6 or 7 files at you right now, and you're making, 120, 130 by yourself, you're gonna freak out. It's not fun, I will tell you. And you're making decent money, but you don't even have time to spend it. Okay, and you're worn out. Okay, I felt like as my business was growing, I could make about 75 grand, no stress at all. Every nickel from 75, and I'm not telling you this to impress you or not impress you, I'm just sharing my story. Every nickel from about 75 to 150 was at the expense of my personal life. Okay, it was getting more and more threatened the more and more business I got. After 150, honestly, I didn't care what your pre-approval letter said. I didn't have any energy left in the tank. I was going home and I was going to bed, period. That was it. I didn't care where you wanted to look, how easy of a deal it was going to be. Didn't care. I was done. Okay. What I realized is, though, as I made more money, I could start paying people to do things I didn't want to do anymore. Right. So that started by having an assistant do some of the clerical stuff. Right. That was somebody to say, okay, well, happy birthday on LinkedIn, or hey, congratulations on your work anniversary, or hey, don't forget that your mother-in-law's birthday today, call her, right? Or hey, input this person in the database and put them on a drip campaign or whatever, right? So I stopped doing that because I had earned enough money to stop doing that, right? And then I said, well, gosh, I don't really want to work at night anymore. Pam, I walked into the, I've told this story a bunch of times. I walked into the Ignite room 9 years ago, and I went up to the instructor. I said, who's the smartest person in here? And the instructor said, she is. I said, come with me.
This is where?
This is at our office. This is about 9 years ago. I walked into the Ignite room and I needed help. I was pretty much right here, right? Meaning I had the money and the business, but I didn't have the time, right? And I walked up to the instructor and I said, hey, who's the smartest person in this room? Right? And the instructor pointed to Pam Sliger. I said, Pam, you come with me. I said, here's what I'm going to offer you. Here's what I want in return. Are we a match?
That's awesome.
She said, yes. We've been friends and partners ever since.
I did not know that. I came on at the same time that you did, Bill. That I've been 9 years.
Okay, yeah, I'll be I'm about 9.5 years. I came in November of 2010. So basically what I did is I was able to secure back some of my time. The very first time, by the way, Pam showed a property for me was the first day my daughter crawled and I saw it.
Oh.
I would have missed it.
Yep.
If I was so damn stubborn that I wasn't going to get help. See what I'm saying? Now, what is going to end up happening is if you're dealing with people that are in the wrong price range, or don't understand the expectations that need to be set, or don't respect your efforts, then you end up feeling the pinch much lower, yet you don't have the money to get yourself out of the pinch. You see what I'm saying?
Right. And that's my problem.
That's why I said it. That's exactly your problem, right? You'll do 17 units, but you won't have that they're not high end enough.
Yeah.
And so, I was doing 17 units and I'm like, I don't really like doing all this work myself, but I had enough money because my price range was high enough where I could pay somebody to start doing it. You're not securing enough, the values aren't high enough for you to get yourself out of the funk.
Right.
So
I'm worn out, I don't have time to do a lot of the things that I'd like to do,
Well,
Here's the summer again. I want to take off the middle of the day and lay out at my pool. I don't have, I can't do that because I've got, I have all of this business. I can't find properties for them because they're so low end. And, so I'm not making any money on the business that I have.
so let me ask you a super direct question.
Okay.
How much longer are you gonna tell yourself that story?
Well, that's why we're having these conversations.
So at what point, when I see that you haven't made the strategic steps to change, should I remind you that I'm noticing that you have not taken the strategic steps to change? Right? So just ignore the lower end buyers tomorrow and make a bunch of calls to $500,000 owners and see how it feels, and add some of those people to your database. Because I'll tell you what, if all of a sudden you had 50 more people that own $500,000 houses that were open to a conversation with you, you'd be a hell of a lot faster to drop the jerks that you're working with on the lower end.
Right.
Okay. Right now you're holding on to them for dear life because that feels like your lifeline. Every problem in real estate can be solved simply by having more leads. Right?
Yes.
If you have more leads of the type of lead you want, then you put up with less shenanigans, right? So, oh, you're a bigot? I don't work with bigots. Sorry. You're late all the time? I don't work with people that are late all the time. You disrespected the lender that I introduced you to? We're done, right? So, but if that's your only client, you're like, oh my gosh, my only client, he's such a bigot. He never is on time and he disrespects everyone I connect him to. Well, what time should we go out looking at homes tomorrow? Right?
Yeah.
You got to cut that out, because every time you hop in your car and you drive down to wherever you're driving down to, what you're saying no to is sitting by the pool, enjoying the pool that you and your husband and your family have earned. Right?
You're right. You're right.
So it's really going to come down to priorities. Everything you say yes to is something you're saying no. A lot of things you're saying no to. So basically what I want you to do is get to this point where not only are you working with the people you want to work with, and it's giving you more fulfillment, and it's making you feel that you're a sense of more accomplishment, right? But then you have the capital you need to say, hey, our Facebook ad isn't working like it should. You go deal with that. That's your job. My job is to go prospect for the people I want to work with. I'm not saying this in a disrespectful manner, but you're the marketing person. You go deal with the marketing challenges. I'm the one bringing revenue into our organization through prospecting, appointments, closings. I don't have the expertise nor the time to develop the expertise on how to learn the little nuances of maximizing Facebook command, right?
Right.
That would be your job. Are you interested in the job? Yes or no? If the answer is no, or you're not super enthusiastic about it, you don't get the job, right? Now, there's plenty of people online, let me tell you, that are more passionate about technology than sales. And those are the people, whether they realize it or not, they could sell their newfound skills, right? So you say to somebody, hey, I'm interested in hiring somebody to manage my Facebook campaigns. Who would like to talk to me about that opportunity? And then you'll get on the phone with 5 or 6 people from across the country that have studied command and nerd out on it. And they'll each give you a pitch. All right, Jan, you're going to spend $400 a month and I'm going to take $400 a month. Are you interested? Or whatever their pitch is. And you see what's reasonable and what's not reasonable, and if you want to go down that path. But part of the reason why, this is going to sound super harsh. Do I have your permission?
Sure.
You're spending too much time with low-end buyers that's dragging you down, and you're spending too much time trying to navigate the complexities of a system that somebody else should be running for you.
Well, spending the time. But it does take time away from my business, because if she's doing it, then, she's not doing other things that she could be doing for me. So.
Right. That's exactly right. And
could
she
you
could be on the
have a
phone
showing?
making those calls too.
So, Bill, could she have a showing agent? Like, there are a lot of agents that just show for a flat fee, like per house.
You could do the person does have to be licensed, just to throw that out there, right? They do have to be licensed. And you're supposed to pay them through the brokerage rather than pay them like outside of the brokerage, right? Because they're not
Oh,
supposed to make, they're not supposed to make money. They're not supposed to be paid by anyone other than their broker. Meaning, like, let's say you opened a door for me, rather than giving you $50, I would give it through Keller Williams, and then Keller Williams would pay you. Because Keller Williams, you're not supposed to receive payment through anyone other than your broker.
But these showing agents may have a broker.
They need to have a broker.
I think they do. Somebody was telling me about that, and they said that it just freed up all their time. And it wasn't like $50; it was like $5 a house.
$5 a house, you're not going to find the right person.
Well, what they would do is they would do, like 4 or 5. Who told me about? I think
That's not enough money. What I would pay there was a time before Pam became officially the buyer's agent. There was a time she was the showing agent first, and we. I kind of said to her at the very beginning, I said, look, I'm just incredibly grateful for everything that you do for me and with me. And I'm going to err on the side of being generous. And if there's any time that you get anywhere close to resentful about something, I want you to bring it to my attention, okay? And we have not had a single discussion in that way in 9 years. So I used to pay her between 10 and 20% of the commission to be strictly the showing agent. And if the number of homes she showed was more than like 15 or so, I'd go up to 20%. And what she would do is she would be the person that basically received, when they send you an email, it's like, I want to look at these 7 homes, and like 2 of them are FMLS numbers and 2 of them are Georgia MLS numbers, and one's like an address they found on FSBO or Zillow or whatever, and like one of them is totally disorganized and it takes like an hour to get it all organized. I'd send her that email and say, here's what they want to see. She would make all the calls, she would set up the route, she would do her thing, and then she would call me and say, write up 123 Smith Street. And I would take back over. So I paid her between 10 and 20% of the deal. And we just kind of had this agreement that I was going to err on the side of generosity and she was going to be fair, and we never had any disagreements, right? And then there were times as I got busier and busier that she'd call me and say, 123 Main Street, write it up. And I'd say, I ain't got time to write it up. Why don't you write it up? And now you get 25%. Right? Or now you take over the whole thing and you can have 50% because I don't have time for this. Right? And my goal, my role in the business was to go create so much opportunity that every time a piece of opportunity came to me, I would say, what is the most appropriate strategic way to deal with this opportunity? Is it to refer it out? Is it to be a buyer's agent, to be a showing agent, something in the middle, right? Because I was, taking trips, and I was, I haven't worked a Saturday in 9 years, 10 years, right? I've worked probably, gosh, I've probably worked less than 5 Sundays in the last 7 or 8 years. Like, I'm not trying to be boastful. I'm just telling you that when you set boundaries and you hold the boundaries, it doesn't mean that you lose out on opportunity. It means that you create a business that revolves around the boundaries that you've set. Again, this is supposed to be a life worth living. A life worth living, sitting by the pool in the middle of the afternoon, calling somebody that already wants my call that's going to energize me, sounds a hell of a lot more like life worth living than going down to fill in the blank, working with a $60,000 buyer that's 2-timing me with some other agent.
Right.
right? So,
You're right.
um, I mean, that's kind of my piece on that. So both of you probably are in the stage right now where there's you're probably like right in this area here where you're not quite ready to start paying people to do stuff, but the more and more sales you have and the more higher price you go, within reason. I'm not talking about luxury. Okay, the most expensive home I ever sold was $720,000. The one shy of that was like 600, and the one shy of that was like 500. Like I never sold like crazy expensive homes. I just sold a ton of like $200,000, $300,000 homes. Right.
Excuse me. Alex, the dog's barking. I don't know if he's outside or.
What I found is those people, they kind of found, and I don't want this to, I'm saying this from a, there's certainly some limiting beliefs in here. So I don't want you to take this the wrong way. But what I found is I kind of wanted that next level of like that, like 275 to 450. And this is going to sound terrible, and maybe I shouldn't even put this on YouTube, but I served plenty of first-time home buyers, believe me. Okay. They were a lot. It was a complex transaction. Things worked very slowly. Like it was a chore, right? And as I got more and more opportunities, I preferred working with people that were a little beyond that, right? Yet I didn't want to go to work for people that were, you know, $1 million buyer that, you know, I found them to be unrealistic or rude sometimes and wanted me to spend all kinds of crazy money on stuff. And I didn't feel comfortable there, right? So if I'm in that like 3 to 4 to 500 neighborhood, these are people generally speaking, that they had some form of supervisory role professionally, right? Meaning they were used to saying, here is a project, you go do this, right? Yet they tended to be still grounded a little bit, right? And just like I suggested to you, Jenny, the other day, is that client that you just signed the listing agreement with, that's a powerful man or woman, right? And they love, and they are not used to taking on projects. They're used to selecting a talented person to take on a project. So you give them the assurance that is in fact what they've done, right?
Guess what I just did? That sheet that you sent us, the seller's listing form that you sent us the other day from Carrie, was it Carrie?
The info sheet or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I modified that and I'm going to send that to him because he needs to see a project. He needs to see steps that I'm taking.
Right. Just say, hey, I'm taking care of this so that you don't have to, right? And then he goes about his day like he's normally or she's normally used to doing, which is, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I got this talented person in my life that's taken this project on so I don't have to. And I can go focus on living my highest quality of life, right?
Yes.
So the takeaway here is not go write a big fat check to somebody who's going to do a bunch of stuff for you. We'll get there. The takeaway now is you have to fund that first. And you fund that first by actively choosing who your prospects are going to be, right? So you both and all of us have the power to select our client, right? Who is our ideal client? Our ideal client is a young family with 2 kids, and they just sold their first home and they bought their second home, and they live in a swim and tennis community, and they are concerned about schools. And you know, within the next 5 years, they're probably going to buy their first investment property. Okay, what neighborhoods do those people live in? Let's go call them. Let's go call them, right? Introduce yourself. Take a very calculated, active, systematic, purposeful approach on making sure they know that you're a real estate agent And it would be absolutely crazy for them to make a real estate decision without talking to you first.
Okay.
I used to go in homes that were vacant in the price point I wanted to be in. So, you know, about 500, 400, 800. So I could familiarize myself with all of the seller's disclosures and features and marketing.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
talk to people if I was in a coffee shop or something. I said, oh, I was in that home the other day, you know, and
Love
then
that's simply learning the market, right?
Mhm. But it sounds like I was looking for, you know, not that I was being dishonest, but just I was familiar with the property.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, what you're doing is, um, uh, what you're doing is you're becoming a professional, right? You're learning the marketplace, right?
Mhm.
If they don't want you to come in the home, they'll tell you. But otherwise, I'm gonna use my time to become a stronger professional, right? And in order to be a strong professional, I need to understand the nuances between what a $500,000 home in Roswell looks like versus a 375 home, right?
Oh, trust me, I know what that looks like.
Right. So Jan, if you're going to go prospect a bunch of $500,000 owners in, let's say, Dunwoody or something, then go into every home in that price range in Dunwoody so that you already know the properties.
Gotcha.
Right? And they say, oh, yeah, what's that? By the way, well, I got a realtor on the phone. How long is that property down on the cul-de-sac? How long has that been available? Or did they just reduce their price? And you could say, absolutely. Have you been inside? No. Okay, well, great. It's got a lot of great updates and, finished basement, and it's a beautiful house. If you know of anyone that's moving into the area, I'd love an opportunity to make the connection, right? Then they're like, oh my gosh, not only this isn't just a random stranger cold calling me, this is actually a real, true professional that wants to study what a true professional should be studying.
That's a good point. I've never thought about being so familiar when you call that neighborhood with what's sold down the street, because you can have that conversation.
And once you do it enough, it's just natural, right? Because you know what those properties look like, right? So, Jenny, you're in a couple of neighborhoods in Canton and Woodstock. Like, you should be looking at the hot sheet every day, saying, "Oh my gosh, we got a new listing. I got to go see
Tell
this."
me more about the hot sheet, because I don't know how to look at that.
If you go to FMLS,
Yeah.
you can set up like basically searching. What do you call it?
It is hot sheet. I've done
Yeah.
that. I've done that, like Cherokee County or whatever.
It basically tells you like new listings and listings that just expired or listings that just went pending. And you can set up buyer notification searches just like if you were a buyer to say anytime there's a property that's listed in these 3 neighborhoods, I want an alert about it. You
Okay.
set that up just like you're a buyer. So you click on that every day, or you get the alert when they happen, and then you make it a point to go and see that property. So then when you're in the community and you make your cold calling, you're talking to your sphere, and they obviously live in nearby, that it's going to be important to them to see how that home responds to the market, right? And when it sells, the price range that it sells for is going to have an impact on that owner's equity and that owner's value. So if you claim to be the expert, then you should know some stuff about that listing, right? Then you're going to naturally start to see the same old floor plans over and over and over again. So when one of them calls you and says, hey, come over, you're like, oh, it's the Madison with the living room on the left. Okay, well, the last 4 that have sold for 325, 327, 329, 323. This one's simple. And they're like, holy shit. And you're like, would you like to sign in blue or black, babe? Let's do this. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So are you getting purposeful about becoming the person that it would be silly not to consult before they make a real estate decision, right? And you only have a limited amount of time. So where are you getting purposeful? Are you getting purposeful in your presentations, your scripts, your objection handlers, a particular part of town, a particular price range? And how are you telling the world that that's what you're doing, right? Then you can click a little video that says, hey, I'm out, previewing a couple new listings, right? Look at this cute one in Canton. And the next day you're in Dunwoody. Hey, looking for some property in Dunwoody for a new prospect that's coming in town next month. Here's some $400,000 homes in Dunwoody. Anyone have any questions? Cool, look at this backyard. Oh my gosh, look at this landscaping. Oh my gosh, don't you love this new modern bathroom, right? What you're doing is you're telling people you're active. You got things to do, you got projects, you're busy, right? You're successful. People want to work with people like that, right? And by the way, that's going to attract more and more of that stuff, right? If all of your videos or all your marketing is about $100,000 buyers that you're helping, you're going to end up with a bunch of $100,000 buyers.
Well, I'm not posting videos about my $100,000 buyers because for that reason, I don't want to attract those people. So,
right. Wouldn't you rather do something that you can publicize?
Yes.
There you go.
Will you send me?
But sometimes $100,000 buyers can maybe buy a little more and they don't know it.
Well,
that's true. And again, I want this to be perfectly clear. I'm not suggesting turn down that business, but if you are,
a lot of them are investors or would-be investors who, they've got this, mentality that it has to be $100,000 or less to be a good house. And, I work with a lot of investors, and but the ones that I do a lot of work for are the ones that I help them find the $100,000 house, and then when they list it, I get the listing, and that's our deal. And those are worth spending a lot of time, but it's the ones that it's like Bill said, they're cheating on me. They're using 3 different realtors.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is they probably are doing that to other agents.
Of course they are. They're more loyal to the equity than you, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just I don't want to be that agent.
Right.
Right.
Why don't you talk to them about selling their house?
The one up in the country club, the one they really live in?
So you list that house with me and I'll, or hey, who do you know? Like, I'll do this for you, but who do you know that you can hook me up with at a higher price point?
Right.
Well, and I do have agents that refer people to me on a regular basis, and investors. And like I said, those are the ones that I work with a lot. But I'm trying to get away from all of those other people. But it's like I was telling Bill before you got on, it's like we're running an ad on a $600,000 house. We've gotten 28 leads. We got 5 or 6 new leads today. And, every time I connect with somebody, it's somebody that wants $100,000 to $150,000 house. And, it's a $600,000 house in Sandy Springs that these leads are coming in, and they're not for Sandy Springs. They're not, So I'm just
going to tell Facebook. I would send Facebook a message and tell them that.
Well, they're the ones clicking on the ads. And
no, it's an algorithm. It's sending those people. They're getting a mixed message from. I would tell Facebook, somehow you're funneling me to these people, and that's not what this house is.
I think that the takeaway here is that the more active approach you take, the more control you have over the people that end up in your database, and the more control you have over the people that you end up doing transactions with, and the more control you have over the results of your activity. The more passive behaviors you do, like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this, but Facebook ads and mailers and seminars and these kind of things, you have less control over, and therefore whoever comes into your world is kind of happenstance, and you don't know what they want to spend. You don't know what type of person they are. You don't know whether it's going to be the right match for your business model. So I think that the biggest takeaway here is think about who you do want as your ideal client, and then that's who you should go out and say, well, where do these people hang out, right? Where do these people live, and how do I penetrate this, right? And then use the opportunities you have, like this particular buyer that wants something, $300,000 to $500,000, and go call hundreds and thousands of people and let them know that you are super serious and super talented and super driven. And if you line up 100, this is what NAR says. I'll end with this. What NAR says is if you line up 100 real estate, or you line up 100 people that just worked with an agent, 91% of those people will tell you that they will strongly agree that they will use that agent again, or most likely agree they will use that agent again. When it actually comes down to it, only about 9% do, which means if you talk to 100 people and they all tell you that they have a relationship with an agent they intend to use in the future, 9 of them will the next time they have a need. That tells me everyone is fair game.
Will you do me a favor? And I know you're getting ready to leave, but will you send me that spreadsheet thing again? I cannot find it. I have a little bit of trouble when I don't use Google Drive, and
That's
so when
great.
you share stuff to me through Google Drive, for some reason I can't find it again.
Okay, you got to use Google Drive. This is just for Google Drive.
So I can't download it to an Excel spreadsheet or anything?
Well, you could, but we wouldn't see each other's edits and stuff.
Okay.
So I'll send it to you again, but I would strongly suggest you use Google Drive.
Okay.
On the left-hand side, it says shared with me, and you'll be able to access it. Okay. All right, y'all. I appreciate you coming on today. I hope it was helpful.
Thank you, Bill, always.
Soon.
Thank you.
Hmm?